Goat. That's a whole layered situation. Adam, I'm going to pretend like we're on a red carpet here. Just walk me through what you're working with.
Well, Laura, if they're going to change outfits and wardrobes during the Oscars, I figured that's the least we could do on NFL Live during the Christmas Eve edition of it. And you guys requested that I put on some sort of Christmas outfit after opening the show in a regularly closed outfit. And so this is one of the advantages of working at home during the pandemic. You have a wife and a daughter and a son who are enthusiastic about making you look as foolish as you possibly can. And so I want to give them a shout out for making me look like this. Look, if you can't laugh at yourself in this year, in 2020, well, when are you going to laugh at yourself?
You look amazing. And shout out to the fam for that. You know what? On that note, Adam, let's get to your top stories. Very serious business here, starting with Ronald Jones.
Yes.
Well, if you could take me seriously during this, Laura, here's the top news of the day. Essentially, Ronald Jones, the Buccaneers running back, has been ruled out for a second consecutive week. Tampa Bay head coach Bruce Arians confirmed today Jones will not be cleared to return from the reserve COVID-19 list in time to make the trip to Detroit. That means more work once again for the Buccaneers' other running back, Leonard Fournette. As for the Washington football team owner, Daniel Snyder, according to a filing Wednesday in a U.S. District Court in Southern Maryland, Snyder claims one of the Washington football team's minority partners, Dwight Scharr, is extorting him in an attempt to force Snyder to sell the franchise. Snyder made the filing one day after the Washington Post reported details of a $1.6 million settlement the franchise paid to a former employee over a sexual misconduct allegation. And Lions head coach Darrell Bevell is out on Saturday against Tampa. The man who was replacing Matt Patricia now will be replaced by wide receivers coach Robert Prince. QB coach Sean Ryan will call the offensive plays. Their defensive staff will be entirely different at this point in time. Their defensive coordinator will be Evan Rothstein, who is the assistant to the head coach, who's been with the organization for 9 years, who's never done this in a game, who went to my high school, by the way. But he will be calling the defensive plays and become the first person in the history of Belmore John F. Kennedy High School on Long Island to call plays in an NFL game.
Let's go. Hey, by the way, if you're just joining us, yes, that's Adam Schefter, and yes, he is decked out in all kinds of holiday cheer. We shift our focus to the AFC, and here's how the playoff picture currently stands. The Chiefs, Bills, and Steelers have already booked playoff spots. Kansas City in the driver's seat for that #1 seed, and of course, home field advantage, so important. The Browns, Colts, and Dolphins occupy the 3 wild card spots with the Ravens and Raiders on the outside looking in. So a huge game between the Dolphins and those Raiders in the desert. Miami holding on to that last playoff spot we just showed you there, while Vegas would be eliminated from playoff contention with a loss or a Ravens victory. Key, does this game for Miami ride on Tua?
It does. Tua just needs to play better than he did last week. He got the 2 touchdowns on the ground, but throwing the football, we'll be able to see what he does against this Raiders secondary that's been bad all year long. That's important. Let's see what he does as they get ready to make a playoff push.
I'm with you. Look, I'm looking at the other side of the ball for the Dolphins. This defense has been a defense that's been driving a lot of turnovers, giving a lot of short fields, and being able to sometimes get in the end zone as well. Derek Carr and this offense presents a challenge, but I'm looking forward to seeing this front from the Miami Dolphins get after the Raiders and Derek Carr, who's hobbled, and this secondary versus Ruggs and Waller and all of those guys, see if they can continue to stand up and turn the football over as well.
Yeah, 2 things I'm watching this game. 1, if the Raiders are going to win, I'll give you the 2 names that have to play well to do it. Nelson Aguilar and Foster Moreau. I think this is a difficult matchup for the Dolphins defensively. Waller's really good, and those corners are long, so they'll get tested. But I think you can get after their nickel, and I think you can get after their linebackers in the pass game. Those 2 guys have to play well if Las Vegas is going to win. Then Tua. Last week, I thought he played really well given what the game was needed. If Gesicki and Devontae Parker are back, I want you to push the ball downfield a little bit more. This is a defense that you can really go, all right, I'm starting to get more explosive pass game for offense. Let me see you push the ball downfield a little bit and have success to it. Those are the 2 things I want to see in this football game.
Yeah, it would be a big help for him if Mike Gesicki is able to get out there and be healthy. That's been one of his favorite targets all season long. We got more NFL Live coming your way, so let's get right back to it. Vikings and Saints in Week 16, and these teams have a history here with us for that. And what are you paying attention to, Adam, in Saints and Vikings?
Well, Laura, if you look at the Minnesota Vikings, they ruled out a handful of players today. They'll be without Eric Kendricks, their excellent linebacker, who would be key to slowing down a guy like Alvin Kamara. They'll be without tight end Kyle Rudolph, who has been declared out. They'll be without Alexander Madison, and even their other backup running back, C.J. Ham, is questionable for the game. So the Vikings are missing some key players. On the flip side, New Orleans has some question marks at the wide receiver position. Today, the Saints placed Traquan Smith on injured reserve. Michael Thomas already on injured reserve. So now the Saints have Michael Thomas and Traquan Smith on injured reserve. They're going to need one of their young wide receivers, albeit little Jordan Humphrey or Jawan Johnson, to step up and make some big plays on Christmas Day against the Minnesota Vikings, as New Orleans is shorthanded at wide receiver right now.
Yeah, it's a really good point, Adam. And Key, speaking of those young receivers, do you have confidence in Drew Brees, knowing what we saw last week? He looked, it could have still been the injury, but he did not look like the Drew Brees that you want to see right now.
No, he didn't. Less than 50% throwing the football. He didn't look the same at all. But you got to have confidence in the young receivers. But Drew Brees has got to get them on the same page. There's no Laquan Smith there. There's no Michael Thomas. That's key to them. But there's Alvin Kamara. And when you think about it, you got one of the better players of all the National Football League on your team despite position. Drew Brees has been here before, but that's not important to me. What's important is, can you get over Minnesota spanking that butt the last 3 times out? Can you get over that? They've had their number 3 straight times. Can somehow Sean Payton and that cast of characters in New Orleans figure out how to finally beat the Minnesota Vikings?
Yeah, sometimes seeing is believing. And then sometimes the most real things in the world are the things we can't see. I know the Saints are really good, right? Like, they're a team in the NFL that I'm like, I know what they are. But then there is a great variable of unknown. I have been seeing Drew Brees and Michael Thomas play together since September. I mean, this team is 10-4, and they've played 2 games together. Like, so that's, for me, it's like, I understand that this is a championship caliber football team, but there's that unknown that I just can't see. I haven't seen it this year. Drew's going to be a lot better from last week to this week. If you watched the Chicago-Minnesota game, Chicago ate them up in the play-action game. And something that this offense does really well and needs to do this weekend to help those receivers maybe get some of those chunk throws, to help them get themselves open, to create that void and pass concept, is for that play-action pass to be dominant against Minnesota. Minnesota's got nobody playing on defense right now. So this is a great game for Drew to get his second week back, for that play-action pass to be a huge part of their game, some of those young receivers to get some chunk passes, and then kind of force themselves or get right headed into the playoffs.
Man, I don't know if you've been writing poetry or songs or whatever, but you trying to be like a little wordsmith today. I don't know what's popping. I mean,
he's doing it on purpose, Marcus.
But it's
movie quotes.
This is the new day.
It's called Christmas movies, bro.
Okay, listen. Listen, the bottom line is, I want to go back to something Keith said, Alvin Kamara, right? That's the most important piece to this puzzle. That's the quickest way for Drew Brees to get comfortable. That's the quickest way for the Saints to have a guy to generate his own offense by just getting him the ball in either a handoff or a short throw situation, or even in the screen game. He needs to have his imprint put on this game. And for all intents and purposes, we don't think the Vikings are going to beat the Saints. But we didn't think the Eagles would beat the Saints either. So we are in a situation right now where Drew is trying to get comfortable after being off with the injury. Alvin Kamara, production has tailed off a little bit from the beginning of the season, and I expect Sean Payton to feature him with all of the guys that we just mentioned not being a part of this game.
By the way, very important note, I am told that we are counting the amount of Christmas quotes coming out of Dan Orlovsky. We will check in on that count toward the end of the show. Let's get to the NFC West, guys. An enormous showdown between the Rams and the Seahawks coming your way. And the Rams are still wondering, how did they lose to the Jets?